My name is Michelle Thompson, and this is my kind of demonstration on my lesson of solving systems of two linear equations using the elimination method. Now, this is typically an Algebra 1, TEK and Algebra 1 lesson, which I would have taught in Algebra 1. However, I'm currently teaching algebraic reasoning. It's one of my mini preps. And I will actually incorporate this unit or this lesson into the scope and sequence kind of right before we start getting into matrices and solving matrices using Gaussian elimination, using elementary row operations, just because I think it has a nice kind of refresh and a lot of the same properties and characteristics. This unit or this lesson is designed in a 90-minute block. We used to teach 90 minutes at my campus. We're currently back at a 54-minute blocks. But again, it could be adjusted depending on your kids. I have some classes that can go through this whole thing in maybe 30 minutes. I have other classes that could take me 2 days. A little bit of housekeeping. This is my classroom. I know it might not look like it. Well, yes, normally I would have a room full of kids. I also have several kids that are homebound. And so sometimes I have to teach them still through Zoom, FaceTime, those kind of video recordings. And then another little side note, my classroom does have motion sensor lights. So if you see me all of a sudden moving out of screen or waving my hands like a crazy person, it is because I'm trying to keep the lights on. I don't want you looking at me in the dark. I mean, I don't mind the dark, but I don't need you to see it. Okay, so back to solving systems of equations. So as my kids come up, they come into class, they would grab their journals, and in their journals, they must write the date and they must write what the objective is. They have to know what it is. The TEK, that's for me, it's for admin, right? Like the kids don't care what the TEK is, as long as we know what the objective is. And then I have them write their warm-up, right? And so the warm-up, if you're talking in a 5E kind of lesson plan, would be kind of our engage section of the E's. So his one, which talks about a local charity is wanting to raise money. And it talks about they have a $500 budget and they can only get 200 items. How would they decide what to buy? So I would have the kids, and again, 2 to 5 minutes, again, depending on your kids, while you're doing your lovely beginning of class administrative stuff. Just brainstorm. I just want them to brainstorm. How would they approach it? What are they thinking about? Are they starting to think about equations? Are they starting to kind of guess check? Are they looking at me like I have 3 heads? Yes, maybe. I get all that too. So I have them do that for about 2 to 5 minutes, maybe. And then I would then have them work with their elbow partner, maybe a little think, pair, share. And again, kind of listening to some of the conversations that are happening. So once they've kind of done their think, pair, share, again, a few minutes, I'll kind of take a couple of the groups or a couple of the pairings and just ask them to share, and then start hopefully getting the class to notice maybe there's some similarities, some commonality. What is beeping? Something's beeping. Scary, freaky. It's fine. Just random. So we'll have them do that. So from then I'll have them break out into small groups. And normally in their small groups, I would already have it kind of pre-randomized before they come in. Sometimes I'll hand them little cards. Maybe it could be an index card with different shapes or colors. It could be a playing card, something like that, to kind of already sort them out into their groups. Again, how you like to randomize your groups is fine. And then once they're in their new groups, each group would get a little detailed sheet, more detailed about the problem. And again, we're talking about now the high school student council is organizing this fundraiser for the community food bank. We want to design stuff with the logo, and it gives them some details, some fundraiser details. So the challenge would be to determine how many t-shirts and hats they should order to maximize their profit for the food bank while staying within their budget and storage limits. And some things I want them to consider: how many t-shirts, how many hats should they order, right? That's the first thing, right? How many should we order? Based on our budget and our size constraints, what we can hold. What's the maximum profit we could get, right? We start adding in, if we're selling, how can we determine what our profit is? And then how can we optimize our inventory given budget and storage constraints? So again, I'm going to have them work in their groups. Now, working in their groups could take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. It really depends on your class and your group. Again, I have some groups, they'll finish it in 10 minutes and then be staring at me. Some groups, 20 plus minutes. Again, it just depends on how you manage the class, what kind of kids you have in your classroom. So as they're working together, I'm going to kind of walk around the kiddos that are struggling. And I'll be like, okay, well, we know this is kind of a math class, and we probably need some equations, right? So is there a way we could express what's happening as an equation or equations, right? We want to start representing things mathematically. So t-shirts and hats, how could I represent that mathematically, symbolically? Again, what are the constraints that the fundraiser has? What are there any assumptions that we're making? You're gonna have those kids that are gonna be like, oh, miss, that's cheap. We should sell this stuff for more expensive. Okay, well, how would that change what we're doing? What other factors might the charity need to think about? My kids that are done, my high flyers, I would ask them, okay, well, how can you test it? How do you know your solution's actually optimal? Right? How would we start thinking about that? So they would work, and again, 10, 15 minutes as they're walking around. Again, I'm just listening for different approaches. How are they really tackling it? How are they expressing their equations? And then again, how they might change prices. Again, I'm just kind of listening. As I'm listening, I'm kind of picking maybe my 3 groups at kind of different levels. What's kind of my high flying group that's got it, they're done 100%. They're ready for the next thing. My middle group that's kind of got it, but still struggling. And then my low baby group, that is just, we could read the problem. That's about as far as we could get. So I'm kind of finding my groups. And once we get back and we kind of get to the explain section, I'm going to have each group, starting with my low group, explain to me what they thought of. Right, I'll start with the low group. Hey, what did y'all think of? Okay, let's get their ideas. Then move on to the medium group. Hey, medium group, can you elaborate on what they said? Can you explain or restate what they said and now add to it? And then, of course, I would do the same thing then with my advanced group. Hey, this is what they've done. Can you restate it, reword it? And now can you add to it? Can you clean it up? Right, just so we can get a really nice kind of base, a nice consensus of really what we're working on. Then from there, we would actually start to define it, right? What is it we're really doing? Well, we're doing a system of linear equations. Again, mostly for Algebra 1. If this is my algebraic reasoning kiddos, we kind of already know what the definition is. So we might just get straight into the equations. I might not need to define it as much. I might have to redefine what it is when we talk about the elimination method, what that really means. But then we start solving it step by step. Elimination. I want to eliminate a variable. I want one of my variables to go away. We would go step by step by step. I would have the students explain it. Like, okay, I know I need to get maybe X by itself. What do I need to do? Here goes waving my hands. What do I need to do to get X by itself? And make them walk me through it. Oh, miss, you need to move a 3. Okay, what does that mean to move a 3? Right? And I make them explain it. I'm really good about making them explain it. Nobody gets away without explaining in my class. Again, so we're using the elimination method, explaining steps, guiding static method. All right, so we kind of saw, we get it, we're kind of good. We might do a couple more little practice problems. But then we go back to the original question. It's like, okay, well, let me pull up the actual scenario. Let me pull back up our kind of chart here. We're only selling 2 items. What would happen if I added a third item, right? If I added a mug, right? How would adding that mug change some of my constraints, right? I still have to be within $500 and I still can only hold 200 items. So how would adding that third variable affect my optimization, affect our solution? And then start having to think of that. Would there be a price difference? Do we think we'd sell more? All kinds of different things. Going back in my little stuff here. All right, so once we've done that, we've kind of elaborated, we've kind of expanded. Then we get into kind of the evaluate. If you want to, so one of the things I can do is sometimes I do it in their homework too. I like to do it a lot at the same time, is their homework is also kind of their quick evaluates. I want to see how much they can do in the time we have left. So usually in the last 10 minutes or so, I will give them their homework. If they finish it in class, fantastic. If not, that's why it's homework, take it home. But it's only 4 questions, right? I'll give them 4 questions, 4 word problems. Again, define the variables, write the equations, solve by elimination. Again, some of my kids could do this in 10 minutes. Some of my kids will need a full day for 4 questions. Again, you know your kids, you know your students. One of the things I have found that my kids or my students struggle with the most is not the solving part, right? My kids can do the solving. They can do the quote unquote math. They can do the arithmetic. It is the defining and writing the equations, right? Really understanding what it is we're looking for and how do we create the equation, right? Defining the variable. If we're going back to t-shirts and hats, okay, maybe we call it T and H, great. And they solve and they get T is 3. Okay, great, what's T? Well, t-shirts. Okay, what about the t-shirts? Is it the number of t-shirts? Is it the price of the t-shirts? Is it the cost of the t-shirts? Right? Just some kind of really defining what it is we're actually looking for. What does that variable actually mean? And then reading an equation to reading the problem to create the equation. If you wanted to add some technology, one of the websites that I like and the software that I use a lot is Delta Math. I really enjoy that. They actually have a great assignment just on defining variables and writing equations. And I love it. Again, you read a problem, it gives you this whole world problem scenario, and all it asks you to do is define it and write it. You don't have to solve, just define and write. And again, it makes you pick your variables. You pick whatever variable you want, but then you have to define it. Again, if we're talking about like here on the chickens and ducks, right? We got chickens and ducks. So people would pick like, okay, C and D, great. But what is C? Oh, it's chickens. Okay, but what about the chickens? Is it the number of chickens? The cost of the chickens? The feed? I don't know. What about the chickens? What about the chickens? I don't know. Right, so they really have to define it. And then again, really write the equations from the word problems. Right? So again, if you're looking for something a little techy, now you could also use, if you have those kids, as they're solving that really struggle with manipulatives, you could have algebra tiles. They do make algebra tiles with X and Y. Since here we are talking about systems of equations with 2 variables, you can get those 2 variable algebra tiles, or you can find free printed versions that you can print out and cut if your kids are good with those kind of manipulatives. Desmos is good. We want to start talking about, especially for graphing, right? If we want to graph these systems, what does it mean? And then even from there, you could elaborate even further into domain and range, going back talking about, are these discrete or continuous variables, or continuous or discrete equations? Do we have an infinite domain and range? Is it a finite domain and range? And so you can start bringing back in those concepts. Again, how would my graph change if I brought in a third variable? You know, if you have those kids where you're able to start graphing in 3 variables, you know, that might be kind of fun. Yeah. And then, of course, at the end of every day, before we leave, my kids do have to write every day. My district and my campus in particular are real big about writing across content. Me too. I think it's great. I'm not asking them to write essays every day. We usually do though about at least once a semester. I have them write some kind of long, at least a page long writing topic. But I want to have them write at least 3 sentences, just really kind of summing up what they've learned for that day. For this one, it is how would they solve a system of equations using elimination. Again, that's the point of this unit, is solving by elimination. Getting into my algebraic reasoning kids, going into solving matrices, we have to use elimination. Yeah. And again, it's a good reflection for the kids. It's a good reflection for me. What did I do? What could I do better? What could they do better? What misconceptions do they still have? Are there any what are they doing well that maybe next time I could not spend as much time on? What do I need to spend more time on? What do I need to go back in tomorrow and still cover? So yeah, so that is my kind of quick rundown on solving systems of equations using elimination. Have a great day.